Hey everybody, it's Father Warner and we are in Friday of the fourth week of Lent. Our text today is taken from the book of Wisdom, chapter 2 verses 1 and then 12 to 22, and then also from the Gospel of John, chapter 7 verses 1 to 2, verse 10 and then verse 25 to 30. I suggest that you read the entire chapter 7 of the Gospel of John. We'll be covering it today and tomorrow. Now, you know, the Bible teaches us the way to heaven. It is principally a book that teaches us salvation. But the Bible also has several practical tips for you and me to learn. Now, one of the things that comes out from the Gospel of today is a reflection I want to make, and I'll develop this in 3 points at the end of today's teaching. But many of us want to be loved and approved by all, and this is an impossible asking. You know, people react to us differently because they come from different socio political, economic, religious backgrounds. I mean, the list can go on, and so everyone is not going to love you the way you want to be loved, even if you have the message of salvation. And that's exactly what happened to Jesus Christ. I say this in reference, first of all, to what I saw online about 2 days ago. It was the 11th anniversary of the pontificate of Pope Francis, and I noticed that there were a whole lot of Catholics on so-called Catholic websites like Defend Your Catholic Faith, who called Pope Francis a heretic. They said he is not a true pope. Now, I know we all have our disagreements or our agreements with the Holy Father, but he is still our Holy Father. And I'm going to develop this point a little bit more. But I want to say this, that all of us, whether you are a pope, whether you are Jesus Christ, will all of us have people who like us and a whole lot of people who don't like us. As I said, I'll develop this in 3 points. Now, coming to our text of today in chapter 7, Jesus has come to the temple in Jerusalem. This is the third time in the Gospel of John that he comes to Jerusalem. He comes, we are told, because they are celebrating the festival of booths or the festival of tabernacles. This was one of the 3 major festivals that any Jew would celebrate. The Pentecost, the Passover, remember the Passover, the Pentecost, and the festival of tabernacles. Now, for the Jews, by the way, if you're wondering what Pentecost were they celebrating, it was a harvest festival. Pente means 50, so they also met 50 days after the Passover. We have, of course, the Pentecost is the coming down of the Holy Spirit on the church, but that's besides it. Now, Jesus comes to Jerusalem. We know that he delays his trip to Jerusalem. His brothers want him to come, but he is aware that there are lots of people who hate him, and he arrives at the festival somewhere in the middle of the festival. And on the last day of the festival, Jesus stands up and he declares himself to be the source of living water to all who thirst in this world. And he says, "Come to me if you thirst." Now, at once we are told that there are people, and you'll see this in both today's text, the verses that are missing, and tomorrow's text. There are people who are his followers, there are people who are his admirers, and there are people who hate him enough to want to kill him. And Jesus has no problem confronting them. You know, in chapter 7 verse 19, he says to them, "You do not keep the law of Moses." I mean, you boast about the law of Moses, but you don't keep it. And clearly you want to kill me, which is one of the laws of Moses. You shall not kill. And because they do this, they hate him. Hate him enough, as we know, to send the temple police to arrest him. We'll see very clearly that they could not arrest him between today and tomorrow's text, because the crowds were enamored by him, they loved him, and also they hated him. Remember, the ones who very often hate you perhaps even sit at the highest positions of power. In the case of Jesus, it was the chief priests, it was the Pharisees, the Sadducees, the entire Sanhedrin. They all hated Jesus. Now, as I said, I'm going to draw three reflections from this teaching. First, Remember that they called Christ the devil in today's text itself. They accuse him of having Satan in him. And I think Pope Francis should find comfort in the fact that people also hate him. Yeah, if they call Christ Satan, I can quite understand why these haters continue to say. Now, please let's get one thing. I also disagree with Pope Francis very often on the things, especially what he says off the cuff. But that does not give us the right to call our Holy Father a false Pope or whatever else we are calling. We do not have the right. Let me say this. The church does not belong to you or me. It belongs to God. It belongs to the Holy Spirit. And you and I cannot play God. We can express our concerns. We can express our dissatisfaction. We can even express the fact that we don't agree with the views of the Holy Father. But when we go on social media under the title of defend your Catholic Church or whatever else you want to defend, well, it's your ego playing out, especially when there is no charity in the words that you use in public forums. That's number one. Number two, I said Christ had his disciples, he had his followers, he had his admirers, he had his haters, and his haters managed to crucify him. One thing I notice is that Christ never stops working because there are haters. Many of you, and I know this has been an experience of many good Catholics who work in parish organizations, want to give up. You know, sometimes I feel also I'm quite fed up of the politics in the church. But we go on. Why? Because the conviction is not skin deep. Our conviction comes from the heart. So don't give up because Christ didn't. And finally, I want to leave you with a very practical tip. It's something I learned a long time ago when it comes to people who hate you. You know, 90% of the people in this world love you. But here's the funny thing, they never tell you they love you, or they admire you, or they care for you. I always say this to my parishioners, please don't tell me all of this on the day I'm leaving your parish. Say it every day because you encourage your priest, yeah? Especially if you like, admire, tell people that you love them. Because 90% of the people who love you in this world never say it. They'll say it to you as part of the eulogy when you die, too late, okay? 10% of the people in this world hate you. And I use hate as a very strong word. They hate you. They may not just dislike you, they hate you. And here's the funny thing, they make sure that you know about it. And here's the irony, we spend so much of our life trying to please these 10%. Now, I'm not being egoistic and saying, you know, disregard criticism. I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is that if you continue to focus on your haters, then you simply lose out. So, if they could hate Christ and hate Pope Francis, you and I are but mortals. I hope you enjoyed this teaching. If it resonates with you, share it with others, leave your comments. I still have to catch up with yesterday's comments, but I will do it over the next few days. Bye for now. I'll see you tomorrow.